everyone, welcome back to a new video. Today I'm going to be doing another blind date with a book video. I haven't done this in a few years, so I thought it'd be fun to try again. And since I also included this in my book bingo, I thought it'll just be a fun thing to do. So here they are. Here are the two books. So I got a fantasy book and a romance book. It's so pretty. I don't want to unwrap it, but here are the freebies. We got a panda sticker. This is so cute. And a little cat bookmark. I'm glad that the seller wrapped it with ribbons because I've been using ribbons as bookmarks recently. I think it was from Melissa's video, one of her videos, but she mentioned that she uses ribbons as bookmarks and I thought to try it and they work really, really well. They don't fall off your books and they look really pretty. So yeah, use ribbons as bookmarks. Are you ready? Ooh, what is this? Ooh, what is this? The Thornbirds by Mykyl. I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but this cover looks really cool. Look at that. Whoa. I did not expect this. I don't know who the author is. I also haven't heard of this book before, but it says it's the epic bestseller. Ooh, this is interesting. We've got dates and different characters. I'm gonna assume that these are like different POVs for the different characters. And judging from the dates, I think these are like multiple stories. I'm getting more and more interested. I've never seen anything like this before. I can understand now why this has 692 pages, especially if we are gonna get multiple stories. Again, I'm just assuming since there's different characters in different chapters, so I think we're gonna get different stories for each of these characters here. So yeah, I'm excited. This seems really promising. So now let us unwrap our fantasy book. We got another panda sticker and I don't know what this is, but we've got this sort of animal thing and a person writing it. And then we've also got a bookmark, which looks really, really cool. And if you know where this is from, let me know in the comments. Honestly, the first time I saw this, it reminded me of the Hierophant tarot card, if you guys know tarot, just because of the number 5. It looks really, really cool. I love the design. I love the art. Okay, are you ready? Ooh, what's this? Volume 1 of the Serpent Wars saga by Raymond E. Feist. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce his name. This looks cool. Shadow of a Dark Queen. Okay, let's see what it says in the back for the blurb. Oh wait, I didn't even look if this one had a blurb. Yeah, there's no blurb in this one. I'll just look it up online. But for this book, it says at the back, the long-awaited new Rift War series from the Master of Adventure Fantasy. Something dark is moving in distant nations, and ancient powers are readying themselves for a final confrontation. A dark queen has raised a standard in remote islands and is gathering armies of unmatched might. Into this battleground of good and evil come a band of desperate men whose only hope for survival is to travel to face this ancient power and to discover its true nature. Their quest is at best dangerous and at worst suicidal. And with these men travel the mysterious Miranda, upon whom all must wager their lives. She appears to be an ally but knows much more than she is willing to tell. Does she have a hidden agenda of her own? And will she prove ally or even more deadly foe when the final confrontation is at hand? Ooh, interesting. Ooh, we got a map! For anyone who loves maps. I don't really care too much about maps, but they are nice to have, I think. And they are fun to look at sometimes. But I know that there are a lot of people that love maps in fantasy books, so this one has one if you're curious to check this book out. Oh, and we have another one. Another smaller map. Oh, cool, we have cast of characters. That's gonna be really helpful. Oh, we have so many characters. So, okay, I might be going back to this page a lot. These are two very interesting set of books. Similar to my last blind date with a book video, I honestly wouldn't think to grab either of these off the shelf. But anyway, I'm still interested to see how I like these two books. Since I did enjoy the other books that I've gotten before, maybe I'll be surprised again with these two books. We'll see. But yeah, I'll be starting with this book first. Hello, good morning. Welcome to the discussion portion of the video. So again, similar to my previous video, I will be just reading the first chapter of each book and I will discuss my thoughts and opinions on them. And I'll tell you guys if it was a success or not, just based on how I liked the first chapter. So the verdict, this book was a success. I really like this book so far. Again, we're just in the first chapter, but yeah, I really like it so far, and I did not expect to be so invested this early on. I'm really invested. I'm really intrigued and curious to see what happens to these characters, and I think it's more because of the dynamics and stuff. I don't know how to explain it, but we've seen their family dynamic, and it's very complex, and that's really interesting to me. But yeah, we've seen the entire family so far in the first chapter. We've been introduced to basically almost everyone except for one child, I think. And we've also gotten different POVs from different family members as well, just like a snippet. And she's also touched on some like other things that really piques my interest. Like I mentioned, we've touched on like family dynamics, but there's also stuff about like gender dynamics and gender roles within the family, but we also get a little bit of insight on the gender roles and dynamics in society from the parents' point of view, which is really interesting to me, and I love that we get to see that. But yeah, there's just like a lot of intrigue for me. Again, considering that we are in the early 1900s, we are in 1915 to 1917. It says Mykyl, so I'm just gonna be assuming it's more gonna be about her life. And in this first chapter, she is the first character that we get introduced to. So Mykyl is the youngest child of the Cleary family. She's also the only daughter. So we have Frank, Bob, Jack, Huey, Stuart, and Maggie. So those are the 6 children in the Cleary family. And then we have the 2 parents, Fiona, the mom, and Patrick, the dad. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. I'll put the name on screen so you can see the spelling. I don't know how to pronounce it. I just assume it's Patrick. So now I'm going to be talking more about the first chapter. I don't know if this counts as spoilers since this is literally just the first chapter that I'm going to be talking about. So if you want to skip this part, then go ahead and do so. So the first chapter starts off with Maggie, and it's her 4th birthday. She receives a doll as a birthday present. And this is a very surprising gift because normally the gifts that she's gotten before are more practical. I don't know how to describe this doll. I'll try to find a picture of what kind of doll I was picturing. But yeah, she gets gifted this doll. She's at their like sort of backyard area. She's just admiring this doll. She's never seen anything so beautiful like it before. So the brothers see her playing with this doll. So those 2 brothers are Jack and Huey. They basically grabbed it from her and they start to like basically manhandle this doll. Like they're like pulling at the limbs because you can move the joints of this doll. They're not really being very gentle with it, playing very rough. And then Maggie's just standing there like not being able to do anything, and she's just seeing her brothers tear her doll, and she's just like really sad and upset. She's trying to like tell them to stop, but she couldn't really like do anything since again she's the youngest. So while that is happening, we get introduced to Frank, who is the eldest Cleary child. He is 16 years old, and a lot of the responsibilities in the house, not necessarily housework, but like more labor work, like those kinds of responsibilities are basically pushed onto him. And we also get a bit of descriptions about what he looks like. And based on the descriptions about him, I think he's like the only sort of like oddball in the family. Like he looks different from everybody else. Like he's the black sheep of the family in a sense. And he also is sort of treated differently as well compared to the rest of the family. Again, it's probably because he's the eldest and he's a boy, you know? So because of that, we get to learn a bit more about Frank and how he is in the family and how he treats the other family members. At the moment, I really like him as a character. He seems really kind and sweet person. However, it's only towards the female members of the family. So I think that's why I like him right now, is because he treats the female members of the family really, really well. Like he respects them, he is sweet and kind to them, but towards the male members of the family, it's very different. Like all of his brothers are scared of him, and I think it's more due to the fact of how his own dad treats him. I don't know, from what I've read so far, it seems like he's the only person that his dad treats in this way, which is like not in a good way, because the rest of the children all love their dad. So Frank has harbored this sort of hatred towards the dad, and then it sort of also trickles down to the brothers. I think he's a good kid. It's just that he has this very strained relationship with his dad, and therefore it also strains his relationships towards the other male members in the family. So yeah, that is Frank. So we get introduced to him. He sees the boys being rough with Meg's doll, and he sees Meg just literally standing there. I don't remember if she's actually like visibly crying or if she just looks upset, but Frank sees this. He basically goes to like save her doll. So they go into the house, they go to the mom who's in the kitchen doing mom-wife things, you know, getting dinner ready and stuff like that. He basically tells the mom what happened with the doll, and she basically says like, we'll fix this later tonight. She'll help like re-sew stuff together, and like Frank could help with the mending of the doll because the doll sort of broke a bit. So that is how we get introduced to Fiona. So with Fiona, like I like her, and I also feel so much like sympathy and empathy for her because, you know, she is a mom and she's raising all 6 kids by herself in this house, and she doesn't have help with her. And she has a bit of a complex relationship with her daughter because I don't know if she feels sorry for Maggie because she is a daughter, but she also is glad that now she has help in the house. There's a very strict gender roles in the house because of the dad. Like it's something that he really cares about and is very strict on enforcing. So while Meg now is still very young, she does help around the house, but with only limited stuff because of how young she is. Fiona can't wait for her to grow up so that she can have more help, because she's so tired, and I can feel her exhaustion with having to take care of all the household chores and with also having to, raise the kids, make sure they're all fed, just trying to make the best out of their situation and like what they have. So yeah, I feel so much for her, and I do like her, and I feel bad for her because of the situation that she's in, because of, the society that she lives in and stuff like that. But even though there are like these strict gender roles within the house, she's not resentful towards her husband. But I think it's more of like the product of living in this sort of society. Like, you're conditioned to think and feel like this is normal, this is okay. But I also think that they have a pretty good relationship as husband and wife. I think like they get along pretty well. Now I'm gonna be talking about Patrick, the dad. Like, he seems like a good guy as well. He's generally liked by other people, and he's also loved by most of his children. And again, I think that the husband and wife have a pretty like solid relationship. Like, I don't see any red flags, well, aside from like the enforcing the strict gender roles and stuff. But Patrick, I don't know how to feel about him. Again, we've only gotten the POVs from Maggie, Frank, and Fiona, and now Patrick. So out of those four, I like him the least, just because of how traditional he is, I guess. But then again, it's also the product of living in this sort of society where he feels like he has to live up to his role as a man in society, as a husband, as a father. So I think he's also just trying his best to fit this role, I guess. So yeah, like, he's trying his best. They are a working class family. So Patrick is, out of the house pretty much the entire day, trying to do as much work as he can to, provide for the family. But because they are working class, they can't afford help in the house. So that's why Fiona's always tired. So yeah, that is one of the, I guess, conflicts that we'll be seeing, something related to with them being working class. It seems like a very sore subject, just based on the conversation that Frank and Fiona have after dinner. So like I mentioned earlier, the dad enforces very strict gender roles in the house. He thinks that like any household chores and stuff is only for women to do. Like, men can't do that. But because Frank cares a lot about his mom and he sees how tired she is, so he wants to help her out. So once Patrick goes up the stairs and goes to bed, Frank helps with his mom to just finish up any of the household chores, like drying the dishes and stuff like that. Fiona appreciates it, of course, but she is worried because, again, as a woman, this is her job. Frank doesn't need to do any of this, but she does appreciate the help. And then Frank just brings up like, I wish we could be more rich to afford getting help. And then Fiona kind of, I don't know, there's like a weird like tension in the room where she's like, oh, Frank, don't say that. Like, we're working class. This is how we live. This is like a normal thing. And then Frank just says something along the lines of like, well, it's not bad to dream. Something like that. Let me actually find the line so I can better explain this. Here's the conversation. Fee looked at Frank gently. I don't know what I'd do without you, Frank, but you shouldn't. You'll be so tired in the morning, because again, he has to do the labor work. He says, it's all right, Mum. Drying a few dishes won't kill me. Little enough to make life easier for you. It's my job, Frank. I don't mind. I just wish we'd get rich one of these days so you could have a maid. That is wishful thinking. She wiped her soapy red hands on the dishcloth and then pressed them into her sides, sighing. Her eyes, as they rested on her son, were vaguely worried, sensing his bitter discontent, more than the normal railing of a working man against his lot. Frank, don't get grand ideas. They only lead to trouble. We're working class people, which means we don't get rich or have maids. Be content with what you are and what you have. When you say things like this, you're insulting Daddy, and he doesn't deserve it. You know that. He doesn't drink, he doesn't gamble, and he works awfully hard for us. Not a penny he earns goes into his own pocket. It all comes to us. The muscular shoulders hunched impatiently. The dark face became harsh and grim. But why shouldn't wanting more out of life than drudgery be so bad? I don't see what's wrong with wishing you had a maid. It's wrong because it can't be. You know there's no money to keep you at school, and if you can't stay at school, how are you ever going to be anything better than a manual worker? Your accent, your clothes, and your hands show that you labor for a living. But it's no disgrace to have calluses on your hands. As Daddy says, when a man's hands are calloused, you know he's honest. So that's the scene that I was talking about. I hope you can also see or like feel this sort of weird, like tenseness in the room, or like this sort of uncomfortable atmosphere. I hope you understand what I was trying to get at with that. So yeah, anyway, I love this. So far, I'm really, really liking it, really enjoying it, and I can't wait to read more and see what happens to this family. Also, because we are in New Zealand at the moment, and when I read the blurb, it said something about moving to Australia. I'm curious to see what happens to cause that move, because that's big, and I think it's a very important turning point in the story. So we'll see when I'll get to that point. But yeah, I'm really, really liking this book so far. Again, I did not expect to be so invested this early on and to care so much about the characters, to care so much about the family. So yeah, I'm very excited to continue reading this book and to learn more. Hi everyone, welcome to the final discussion portion of the video. So we're finally going to be discussing my thoughts and opinions on Shadow of a Dark Queen. So for the verdict of this book, I will say it's a maybe. I don't know yet if this is considered a success. I feel like it's too early to tell, which I don't know. So I only read the prologue for this book, similar to what I did with Wildcard by Rachel Lee in the previous video. That one was considered a success just because even though the prologues were very similar, like they were both set in a different setting and different time period. But what made that one a success is because I think that one had a bit more intrigue for me. But with this, even though this was set in a different setting, we are in a secondary world, whereas in that one was set in, you know, our world, the real world. So for that one, that felt a little bit more like grounded to me. Like it didn't feel too difficult to understand like what was going on, like where we are. But with this, because this is a secondary world, I feel like it was just very overwhelming for me, considering that this is an epic fantasy, which is not something that I typically read. The only epic fantasy that I could think of that I've read is The Hobbit, if you can even consider that an epic fantasy. But the difference with The Hobbit and this one is that that one felt a bit more easier to get into. Things just felt more easier to digest. We didn't really have a lot of characters thrown at us instantly in the beginning, and the world as well was just like very, again, easy to read, easy to get into. And yeah, it just felt more easier. But with this, we are instantly thrown in some like war battlefield. So yeah, there's just like a lot of things happening. We're not only getting introduced to the characters, but we're also getting introduced to like the politics and stuff. And of course, this world that we are in, which is not even going to be the main setting, main world that we're going to be reading about in the main story. I just felt like it was too overwhelming for me. It gave me a very similar feeling to when I started reading The Fellowship of the Ring, which is why I DNF'd it when I first started reading it, because I just felt very overwhelmed with the amount of information. And I feel like it's still early to tell whether or not this book will be a success, but I do appreciate what is going on. Like, I love fantasy. I love getting to learn about the world and the history, like basically the lore and stuff. But again, as I've been saying, this is an epic fantasy. We are going to get so many more characters, and this is going to be probably going to span such a huge, long timeline. But yeah, that is my verdict as of this moment. So now let's get into the prologue and what was like actually happening and stuff. Again, feel free to skip this part if you would like. For any of you who have read this book and this series and are very familiar with it, I'm so sorry if I'm butchering stuff. So we are introduced to Jarwa, Shashan of the Seven Nations, ruler of the Empire of Grass, lord of the Nine Oceans. So that is the first character that we get introduced to in this war scene. And they're basically fighting against these demons who have gone into their world. I forgot how that was even done, but something happened where there was sort of like this like portal thing that opened where demons suddenly start coming into the world and basically causing chaos and destruction and just like killing the people. So they've just been continuously trying to fight off the demons. But now it's gotten to a point where they can't really fend off themselves anymore because of the amount of demons that are coming in, and like, you know, they're strong. So now we're at this point where he's seeing all of his like soldiers just, you know, trying their best, dying for their empire. And then we got introduced to this new character called the Pantavian. And I was so surprised when we finally get to meet this Pantavian person, because they're a snake person, like half snake, half human sort of thing, like lizard people, but they're specifically snake. So this is my first time ever reading something like this, so this made me really excited. So this Pantavian is basically brought in to sort of help solve their problem. But because the Pantavian is a snake person, Jarwa has a lot of doubts because he has heard things from like his elders and stuff like that about snake people and how they're not to be trusted. But since he's out of options, he just decided to trust this Pantavian with the solution that he offers. The solution that he offers is opening this portal to another world so that they will be escaping their world. Like, this portal is just going to be open for a limited period of time, like a few minutes or so. So he entrusts his son to be the new leader, to be the new ruler of their people into that like other world. So before they go through the portal, he like denounces his position as the ruler. So now that the son is going to be the new ruler of their people. And then he also assigns the different roles. The shield bearer, which is going to be the Shashan's like companion. And then there's also the cupbearer and the lore master. They will help him with ruling over the people. So aside from them, there's also warriors as well as the women and children. So they are the only ones who are going to be going through that portal. And then the rest of the warriors and the former Shashan are just going to be staying in this world and fight to their death. And then in the end, he, you know, learns that the Pantavian, let me see if I can find his name. Yeah, I don't think we even get his name. Interesting. Yeah, it just refers to him as the snake priest. But yeah, in the end, we learn that the snake priest was lying to him. We get this idea that they were going to be sending the people to a not so good place. Let me just read this so I won't be butchering what was going on. I feel like I need to reread this again. I understand the gist of it, but like the specifics is not is not in here. Oh, here it is. Knowing the end was but moments away, Jarwa said, "Tell me one thing, Snake. Why do you choose to die here with us? We had no choice, and you were free to leave with my children. Does death at the hands of those," and then he mentioned toward the approaching demons, "hold no terror for you?" With a laugh, the ruler of the Empire of Grass could only think of as mocking. The snake priest said, "No, my lord. Death is freedom, and you shall quickly learn that. We who serve in the palace of the Emerald Queen know this." Jarwa's eyes narrowed. So the ancient legends were true. This creature was one of those whom the Mother Goddess had birthed. With a flash of anger, Jarwa knew that his race was betrayed and that this creature was as bitter an enemy as those who raced to eat his soul. With a cry of frustration, the Shashan struck out with his son's sword and severed the head from the shoulders of the Pentavian. So with learning that, there was nothing that he could really do, you know, like his son already left with the rest of the people through the portal, and the portal has already closed. All he could do is just fight the demons that are still coming into their world. And in the end, he does die at the hands of this specific demon who's different from the rest that we've seen so far. Like, he's huge. Even his aura seems like he's of higher status compared to the previous demons that we've seen. The demon raised the ruler of the Sour up toward his face and held him at eye level. As the light in Jarwa's eyes began to fade, the demon laughed and said, "You are the ruler of nothing, foolish mortal. Your soul is mine, little creature of flesh. And after I eat you, still shall you linger to amuse me between feedings." So this demon is Tugor, first servant of Great Marg, ruler of the Fifth Circle. So yeah, that was the prologue. I am excited to see where we're going to be going because we know nothing about where that portal will be taking them to. We don't know what kind of world they will be at. We don't know what kind of people we'll be seeing or like other creatures and stuff. So yeah, I'm curious to see that other world that they will be sent to. And again, since this is an epic, I have like no clue what will be happening in the story. Like, of course, the blurb can give like some hints, but I don't know how we're gonna get from this point to whatever is being talked about here. That is my thoughts and opinions so far on this book. We'll see how I like it when I actually get to reading the main story. So yeah, I wonder if I will like this. I do love fantasy, but I feel like this is like my true like first foray into epic fantasy. Yeah, like I feel like The Hobbit is a more like beginner friendly introduction to epic fantasy, and then this one's like a actual epic fantasy. So I wonder if I will like this genre of fantasy. We'll see. So yeah, that is going to be it for this video. If you're still watching, thank you so much for sticking out this long. I feel like this video is already going to be very long. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed watching. I will be doing this blind date with a book kind of video again in the future. This is a really fun thing for me to do. So yeah, I will be doing this again in the future. I just don't know when, but yeah. Anyway, again, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.